Hello, my name is Tammy Eggert. I'm the program director for the Civic Education Center, and today we're here with John Minkler. He's the co-founder of the Civic Education Center. And today I'm so excited. We are actually going to have a real live civil dialogue with high school students from all around Fresno County. And we're going to talk about civic values in celebration of American 250. So welcome, John. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm doing very well.
Great. Can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I've been a history teacher, civics teacher, and I've taught teacher education, and I've taught high school down to elementary school history classes. And my real interest, my passion is civic education. And I've been studying that and working with experts nationally through the National Council of the Social Studies and the California Council of Social Studies to try to find the best strategies for teaching civics and civic values and democratic participation to young people.
So, John, can you start by explaining America 250? And how does our civic values connect to this moment in our history?
So America really began as a nation with the signing of the Declaration of Independence in 1776 on the 4th of July. And the founders who signed that proclaimed not only independence from England, but they also proclaimed their intention to create a new kind of government that was based on consent of the people, and that there would be a democratic republic where the people could elect representatives who would make the laws, and it was different from all the other governments that were active at the time that were authoritarian, either kings or tyrants. And so it was a really incredible moment in human history when they came up with this new way of governing ourselves through a democratic process. So the civic values that they included in the Declaration and the Constitution, they said we're endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, and that includes life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So those are basic civic values. They also said that this was to be a government with the consent of the people. So democracy is one of the fundamental civic values that they established. They also decided that our national motto should be E pluribus unum, Latin for from many into one. So one of the values is to respect individual liberty, but also to learn how to work together as one nation, one community, and there's a whole skill involved in that the Civic Education Center has been focusing on is how do we live that out? How do we work together as one? And it involves leadership, it involves shared values, finding common ground, and participating in making decisions and solving real problems.
So these civic values, they were determined by our founding fathers?
Yes.
So how does that connect now, today, to America 250?
So that's the question that we need to consider as a people, as a nation. There are certainly problems in this country right now. We're not living up to all those civic values. We're not working together as one. We're very divided. So we need to figure out how to reinstate those civic values into our problem solving today and reestablishing that priority in our public life.
Why is that important?
If we don't have civic values and common ground, then the institutions that have been created are not going to be stable. There's going to be more and more conflict. We've got factions that are conflicting with each other now, and they tend to be looking for ways to diminish the other side, even calling them evil, and they're not practicing e pluribus unum. They're not working together to solve real problems and establish common goals. And so if the next generation is going to have faith in this country, and they're going to need to see that there are values that it's based on, and they're going to need to learn how to put those values into practice. And so that's why the Civic Education Center is so committed to teaching civic values to young people and giving them the opportunity to practice those civic values in solving real problems and creating common ground.
So you mentioned common ground, and isn't that one of the agreements, one of the goals, in fact, of having a civil dialogue? And we're going to have a civil, like we mentioned earlier, we're going to have a civil dialogue right here tonight. And so can you explain what is a civil dialogue?
So dialogue comes from the Greek Socrates and Plato. It has to do with different people with different points of view, listening to each other with an open mind, with the intention of trying to understand the truth, not to overwhelm your opponent. It's not a debate. It's not an argument. It's a conversation with the intention of finding common ground, finding the truth. And it may not be clear at first. It may take a while for the conversation to continue. As long as we have some basic agreements and civic values, when we do this with an open mind, what usually happens is we come up with creative solutions to problems. And students really enjoy the opportunity to do that, and they're very seldom given that opportunity. So that's one of the things we do at the Civic Ed Center. We have a youth summit. We have monthly meetings of our youth service council, where the students practice communicating with each other to try to solve problems, to make plans, to develop programs that are going to be effective and include other students.
It sounds like we do a lot of student voice and a lot of involving students in making the decisions. So can you explain, why is it important to involve students in the conversation of having a civil dialogue around civic values? If civic values were founded by our founding fathers, why is it important to include students today to talk about them?
Because students aren't going to be able to practice civic engagement and civic problem solving with respect for the civic values that we hold in common unless they practice. It's true of anything students learn, language, math, science. You learn by practicing. However, in social studies, we don't give many opportunities for students to practice civics and civic engagement and civil dialogue. Unfortunately, I think the schools are concerned about having students talking about controversial issues that some students might get upset, or some students might be disrespectful, and that's something to consider. That's why we have agreements, and that's why we refer to the civic values.
How important are agreements? Or actually, can you start off by explaining what are the agreements and how important are they?
So agreements are essential for creating a safe space for students to be able to express their feelings and opinions without feeling like they're going to be attacked or criticized or put down. So there are agreements like respect, We don't put people down. We don't interrupt. We listen with an open mind. We share our ideas honestly, based on facts, not just rumors or things that you've seen on social media. So we insist on those values and those agreements so that the students can feel safe in sharing their views.
And you go over this before the civil dialogue?
Yeah.
Do you get everybody to agree to these? And what happens if somebody doesn't agree?
Well, we ask them what their concern is, why they wouldn't agree, and usually they come around. That's usually a formality, but it's a good question. There are times when students don't feel like they can agree, and they need to speak out. But we have a zero tolerance for disrespect. So students need to understand if they are going to participate in the civil dialogue, they need to be respectful. That's sort of bottom line.
And what is the ultimate goal of the civil dialogue? Like, why do a civil dialogue rather than a debate?
So a debate is adversarial, where you're trying to overcome your opponent and win and have your opponent lose. That's not the goal of dialogue. The goal is to create a situation where everybody wins, where the community is healthy and meets the needs of all the people. The community could be a club, it could be the school, it could be the city, it could be the state or the nation or the world. There's all levels of community, but we start by practicing at the group level, practicing the skill of being able to share your ideas and your feelings in a respectful way and listening to others and being willing to consider that there might be other ways of solving problems other than what you initially thought and what they initially thought. There's also a process of what I call collective wisdom, where students or adults can tap into the wisdom of the group. And I think that's what E Pluribus Unum was about. The founders were able to tap into their collective wisdom and come up with these amazing ideas of creating a whole new kind of government. So the goal of civil dialogue is for students to be able to practice that. So it's very simple at the small level, like we'll do today, for students, and we've done it with a dozen students. We've done it with 50 students, and I just met a student this afternoon who was part of our youth summit, and she was just starry-eyed. She said it was so good to be able to talk to other students who have different ideas and not have to worry that they're going to be criticized or put down.
Wow. So why would a class or a school want to do it? What's the benefit of them doing a civil dialogue in the class?
Well, it's actually a requirement of the public schools to educate students to become responsible citizens, just like it's a requirement to teach students how to read, how to write, how to do math, how to do science. There's also in the state standards and the state frameworks, it's very clearly stated that schools are to create, develop the skills and the values of citizenship, which includes civil dialogue. So the benefit to schools is that they're doing what they're supposed to do, and there's a benefit because the students end up participating in positive ways and contributing to the well-being of the school. It lowers discipline problems. It inspires some students who might be really negative about school and education. If they can find some cause or some issue that they care about, and they learn how to do civil dialogue and get involved in civic engagement, solving problems, it inspires students who may not even want to stay in school.
Wow. Have you seen that happen?
Yes.
That's cool. So if the class or a teacher or a principal wants to learn more about civil dialogue and want to have us come out and go over that, I will put the phone number and the website down below that you can reach Dr. Minkler personally and or Civic Education Center. We'll definitely get back to you. Is there anything else you want to say to?
One other advantage for schools is the new award that was created by the State Department of Education in California, the State Seal of Civic Engagement, which students can earn by doing a civic engagement project that benefits their school or their community. And there are some specific guidelines for that, but students have to be guided to develop the skills to be able to engage in civil dialogue and then identify issues, do research, come up with a plan, work with community partners, and do a project that's going to benefit their school or their community. So it's helpful for high schools to be able to say, look, we've had this many students earn the State Seal of Civic Engagement. That shows that we're really serious about providing these opportunities for students.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Minkler, for joining us today. So next, we're going to bring in the high school students, and we are, Dr. Minkler is going to be our facilitator for the civil dialogue, so you get a chance to actually see it live here today. So stay tuned.
All right. Welcome to the Civic Education Civil Dialogue with our distinguished young adults here. They are actually veteran civil dialoguers because they're part of the Youth Service Council and our new Ambassadors of Tomorrow program. But this is going to be a real exciting experience. We haven't done this on a podcast before. So I'm going to ask the participants to introduce themselves. They're all members of the Civic Education Center Youth Service Council, but they come from different schools. So why don't you introduce yourself?
To kick us off, my name is Fahul Carr. I'm a sophomore at Sanger West High School, and I'm very excited to be here.
Hello, my name is Mariah Reynolds, and I go to Central East High School, and I'm a junior.
Good day. My name is Christiana Garcia. I'm homeschooled, and I'm currently a senior.
Hi, my name is Dia Martinez. I'm from Fowler High School, and I'm currently a junior.
We need to start by having some agreements, and I would suggest, just from our past experience, the basic agreement is respect, and respecting other people's ideas and feelings, and not judging, but listening to see if it might be true or there might be some truth in what they're saying. And so listening with an open mind is one of the agreements. Not interrupting, sharing your feelings honestly is one of the agreements. What else? Help me out if I left some out.
Finding common ground.
Finding common ground. Okay. One of the agreements is to seek common ground. In other words, when you're listening to different points of view, you want to be able to see if there might be some agreements that are some common ground that all of you can agree upon. You want to find solutions. You want to find new ideas that will meet the needs of all the people involved. Okay, so show me an agreement. You know, if you agree or you aren't sure or you disagree with those agreements. All right, that's great. Thank you.
To be here.
Thank you. So here's the first question. As America approaches its 250th birthday, which better protects our future? Maximizing individual freedom or strengthening responsibility to the common good?
So I think moving forward, it should be we maximize our individual sort of rights as well as how we function in society as individuals. I'll give you an example. I think our future is our kids and our students, so education. If we go for the common good, what is maybe easier for the government is saying, okay, this is the way school is going to function. All the kids are going to go to public school. They're all going to learn X, Y, and Z. This is going to be the structure. However, as of right now in America, because we have sort of individualized learning, kids like me, we can be homeschooled. Kids can go to charter schools. And that way we can build upon our future in a different, unique way that is specific to every person's rights. That's different than maybe for the common good, because right now, if we were just looking for the common good, it's probably easier just to send all the kids to the same school, but that's not going to be what's best for the future of America, which is essentially making sure all the kids are getting what you need, what she needs, what I need, which we all have different needs.
Mm-hmm. You know, I agree with that. Even though I personally believe that we should be more collectivist and we should, you know, be caring about the other people and that stuff like that. But I also do believe that we have our own individual freedoms. Like Mariah said, I think it's about balance. I think we have our own individual freedoms, as in I get to choose to go to charter school. I get to choose to go public. I think we have our own individual freedoms. But I think we as a society also have a duty and a responsibility to one another and caring about one another within the way that we vote and stuff like that as well. So I don't believe in complete individual freedom. I believe in a balance between responsibility and duty for one another and caring about one another, and whilst being free in your own individual choices in your personal life.
I have a question for you. So in your day-to-day life, how do you strike that balance of, you know, common good, but also making sure your needs as an individual are being met?
I think that's a really complicated question, because it's like, where do you draw the line? Where is it like, you know, this is best for society, but then this is what I want? I think we just need to understand certain things are better for like society. And I think in every single like day-to-day life, you would just have to understand that there are certain choices that are personal, but then there's certain choices like voting where you have to consider other people. If it directly, rule of thumb, if it directly affects someone else, you should consider someone else. My education choices are not going to be affecting other people. Therefore, that's something I get to choose my individual freedom on.
That's a great rule of thumb. I like it.
I really liked what you had to say. One thing that I really wanted to touch on is that we need to feel, I like that we have a balance, but we need to always remember that sometimes like the government as a whole likes to categorize us into different groups and like tries to think the whole country needs this one thing to succeed. But the truth is we're all different individuals. What works for me might not work for you or you or you. You know what I mean? We always have to remember that our individual freedoms are going to impact us differently. And we have to be okay with that, because sometimes we're not all going to fit in the same box, and we're not all going to be able to succeed with the same conditions. Some work with better for others, and we have to be okay with that and just agree that if we do allow ourselves to be free individuals, then it will actually help us as a collective whole, as you were saying.
Yes, I agree with it, Damon. I'd also like to include that democracy does depend on participation, but sometimes people have different mindsets and they don't want to. So how can we like help them think this way? How can we help them, you know, chime in so they can make a better difference for their community and the people, and not just for themselves? How can we do that, Damien?
Okay, I think the best way for us to go about that, I think, is really just educating our society as a whole, for us to be more informed about like our own rights and what's okay for us to do and what is pushing the limit, what is going to help me as an individual and what's going to hurt someone else. That's what I feel like a lot of us need to, like, I know we hear all the time, I think before we speak, like I said, it's really important to have individual freedoms. But there's also time we have to look at ourselves and reflect on ourselves. Am I using my individual freedom to better myself, or am I using it to hurt others? So I think we need to self-reflect and just make sure that we're using it to better ourselves and our country and not to tear each other apart.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you want to go, Paul?
So what I'm hearing is that I think we all agree on the fact that we should be balancing freedom and duty to other people and like collectivism and individualism. I think we agree on that. But our point of division is the degree to which. Like, where do you draw the line? I think maybe we draw the line at different points. That's what I'm noticing.
Well, I'll share something. So, for example, let's go back to that COVID-19. A few years back, a lot of people were arguing over government control over individualized rights, because the government was trying to tell us you need to be vaccinated because if you don't get vaccinated, it's going to hurt everybody else because it's going to spread. But some people were saying that was imposing, on our individualized rights. So I think that's the sort of example that we need to be kind of talking about because, yes, obviously it's great to think before we speak and to consider others, but we can probably talk a little bit more about the real things that are happening in America and how we can apply those principles.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to expand on that? What do you think on that?
What I think?
Yeah, with the example you just brought up.
Sure. I would say that vaccines have not really been mandatory for most of it. Like, I can decide if I want to get the flu vaccine compared to somebody else. I do not think America should be mandating vaccines for everyone. Same thing for school. Same thing for voting. While it's great to vote, it's not mandatory to vote. Because like Mariah brought up, democracy is for the people, by the people.
Mm-hmm.
Our founding fathers founded this country because they didn't want to be told to do things or pay taxes like, King George was trying to do. We can decide if we want to participate in our democracy. And I think that's the sort of thing where individualized rights, it's kind of borderlines of government rights.
What happens, though, when you end up hurting someone else and getting someone else sick because you made your own decision not to, like, for example, get vaccinated? What happens in that sense?
Well, I think it kind of boils down to what everyone thinks. I know certain people didn't want to get the vaccine because they didn't personally believe that, it was actually doing anything or that it was actually preventing sickness. So I think that kind of boils down to what you fundamentally believe because you may believe vaccines, another person may believe they don't work. Ultimately, though, I think we all had to do our due diligence during COVID, staying home, wearing a mask, washing our hands. Those were the things I think the government were putting in place that really weren't impeding on people's individualized rights.
I agree. I like the way you just told us that because even though people may have gotten sick from others because they didn't take the vaccination does not mean that everybody was just getting sick. Like, if that was the case, then there would still be COVID-19. It would probably be even worse. But the government was putting in place for what we should do, and the people who weren't taking the vaccines were doing it. They were quarantined, they were washing their hands, they were doing what they need to do so they could stay not sick themselves and try not to get others sick as well. So I definitely like the way you just spoke about that, Christiana.
Thank you. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that, I like my thoughts on that is, yeah, I agree with you, Christiana, that people should be able to do what they like. They don't need to be at a collective to do things, that they should be able to do things individually. Everybody does not want to depend on others, and they want to depend on themselves, and people should feel like it's okay to do that instead of, the people trying to, make others as a collective. Like, people don't really work well in groups. And I get that sometimes because I am like that sometimes. But really, sometimes being by yourself is kind of better. And some people feel like that and some people don't. And it's just that we're all going to really just have to respect the way people think and how they feel and what they want to do. As long as it's just for the right reasons and not the bad, I guess.
So I have a question. I think Damien mentioned that it's really important for young people to understand both the rights of the individual and the obligation to abide by the law and serve the common good. My question is, are we teaching that in our school system? Are students learning that? Do they have the opportunity to practice making those decisions so that when they get older, they'll have an understanding of the values and the importance of both individual freedom and the obligation to the common good?
I think what I would put towards that is that in our schools right now, at least in my school I can speak on, we aren't really taught about our own rights and what we can and can't do. And I feel like that's one of the maybe a major problem in the country, because you see it all the time, people being taken advantage of because they don't know their rights. They don't know what they can and they can't do. And then you see on the other side of the spectrum, people are doing too much. They're hurting others, and then they say, it's free speech. I can do what I want. But there's a point where it gets to be too much. And I feel if we weren't as clueless and if we were more educated on that, there would be less issues as a whole. And we would be a more advanced society, because we would be able to know when we can step up and use our voices to do something for the government, to make a change, a positive change, and we can know when we're doing too much and we may be hurting someone.
What do you guys think?
I think that even though sometimes the education system is not directly, telling us about, the common good as opposed to your own individual rights, I do believe that that is like a situation we encounter in our day-to-day lives. Like, if I mess up my school's bathrooms, it's not just my individual choice to mess them up and, face the consequences. Do you remember how, Damien, you were originally saying that at some point you got someone at some point was saying that they got their mirrors taken away at their school bathrooms because someone shattered them. I remember someone said that to me at one point. That's like a situation in your everyday, day-to-day life where you encounter, I could shatter my own, the bathroom mirror, but I understand the common good and I understand that this is going to affect other people. I think that even though sometimes these things aren't directly taught to us, I think that this is something that we encounter in every decision we make, subconscious or consciously.
I agree. And I feel like she is right at some points about how one person may make one choice, but it may affect us all. Yes, people are like that, but we can honestly not help what others are doing and what they are thinking. We are all individuals, and like the law says, we can really do what we want depending on which law is enforced and which law we are breaking. And some of us, like Damien said, need to think before we act or speak, because people aren't really educated. And nowadays, there's a lot of stuff going on with these irregular events, like shattering stuff like windows and stealing things. That is also a big problem as well as in America. People just do things without thinking, and I feel like if they're more educated and would know what's really going on with the government and the law, that they'd probably stop themselves, think, wait, I don't want to go to jail or something like that. Just really, I feel like the government and the president should really push these type of topics into schools and these students, into students' minds, for them to be more thinking, to be more, what is it called? Enlightened thinkers. So we can think better for ourselves, and that we will really know what we're doing before we do it. Because some of us just do things a lot of people I know, they'll really do stuff without thinking, which is kind of crazy to me. How are you going to do something and not think about it first? People do not really think, and that is a problem. And we need to start pushing these young minds to think so they could really know what they're doing and really just take a step back and think wait, well, I should do something else, or I should improve this on me, or, because a lot of days people don't really have self-awareness or any of that, and that just, I feel like more information about the law and history, basically more history. We already learned history in school, but I feel like we should more of that, get more deeper into it, because there's a lot of history that we really don't know. We know important stuff, but there's still more important stuff for us to learn, and we just really need to get intact with that. And that's what I really think about us being individuals. Some of us choose to do things and some of us don't choose. Some of us choose to do other things. But I feel like maybe if the government pushes more information, I get that some people don't want to do things, but sometimes as an individual, you got to really think, is this better for me or is this worse? And I feel like people should really take in consideration of what type of education they're putting out there, because people really don't know about the law. People really don't know about Congress and stuff like that, and they should really know. And that's how I feel about the topic.
Thank you. We're going to wrap up the first conversation, and you've given a really good example of civil dialogue by exploring different points of view and different aspects of ways of looking at this issue